Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Maths on African Motives. Still working on A-level pure mathematics, that is actually for Zimsec, and for all the other levels or the other departments that you have, because simply most of these cases are actually the same for this A-level mathematics, Zimsec, is Cambridge, is that most of these they are the same actually. Okay, anyways guys, we are going to be focusing on completing the square. That is in this platform I want us to have an idea of how do you complete the square and the applications of completing the square, that is working with graphs, functions, determination of stationary points, that is the maximum and minimum turning points and so forth. So this is the right platform that we have, guys, to learn all those. So completing the square, guys, is actually an introduction that you have from your quadratic equations, where you are given a normal expression. Like, let's take example of x squared minus 4x. It's just a normal expression, that one that you're given, and you'll be given to complete the square. So how do you complete the square here, guys? Because this is another typical part, or another confusion that you have in mathematics on completing the square there. So it's actually about the stages that you're supposed to obtain or to have, whatever. So I'm supposed to, I'm just explaining this, and please write down if possible stages, and what is important is to know what is happening here. All right, so this is what you're going to do. From this concept, you're going to, as you can see, the expression that you have here, the first thing that you have to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. So that is the best thing that you're supposed to have there to make sure that the coefficient, guys, my handwriting, okay, of x squared is 1. So that is the best, or the first thing that you're supposed to make, and here we've got it as a 1. So there's nothing that you're going to have. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to start with this one. So we are having the equation of x squared as a 1. Then we'll see the other ones which are not having, so that we can be able to see what happens there. All right, so you have seen this. Then what are you going to do? You're going to find, in this case, half the coefficient of x. So this is what is important. Half the coefficient of x, then you square that half. So I'm explaining mathematically like this. This is your for x here, which is the, when we say the coefficient of x, we are referring to x, not x squared. So the coefficient is this number here that is affecting x. So you find half of that number, so half of this number here, which is half of minus 4, then you square. So instead of you squaring this number, just leave it like that. Half of minus 4 is what? Is minus 2 squared. Yes, you know that minus 2 squared is equal to 4. You know this, and that is why you make errors, because you know this too much. Leave this at this stage. Okay, just leave it like that. Yes, it's fine to work with this, but guys, just leave it like that. All right, so this is what I'm going to have. After this, I have found this half of this coefficient, then I have squared 8. Then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add the square, and this statement does not make sense. Add the square and then subtract the square. Doesn't make sense, all right, but it will make sense, don't worry. And subtract the square. So this is what you're actually doing. The square that you have determined, you're going to add it, then you subtract that square, which means, guys, this does not make sense. X squared minus 4x, this is what I had originally. Then I'm going to add the square, and this is my square, which is 4. But I said don't write this 4, just write this one, which is going to be easier for us to understand. Okay, so I'm going to write this. Yes, we can write the 4, but just write this as minus 2. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add, that is a plus, the square, and the square is minus 2 squared. Then I subtract the square. Which square am I subtracting? The one that I just added, this one. So I'm going to subtract minus 2 squared. This one simply is 4 minus 4, guys. Don't panic, all right? And 4 minus 4, that's what? That's a 0. That is why I'm saying it doesn't make sense, because 4 minus 4 is a 0. But this is to make sure that we haven't changed the meaning of the question. That is what is important, because if this gives us a 0, it means we are still having this expression. But this is important to us because you are going to complete the square, and this is where you are going to complete the square. From the first part of the equation, where you've got your linear expression, this one, you are going to focus. This is, take note, guys, understand what I'm explaining here, because I just want to clear the confusion there. This is what you're going to do. You're going to focus with the first term and the last term for this part that you have completed the square. This part, not this part, don't focus about this part, on this part. So this is what you do. You take the term that is being squared, your x here, okay, and your minus 2, the part that is squared, which is the first term and the last term, which is your minus 2. So this is minus 2. Everything you square it like this. Your first term and your last term, and everything you square it, which means what have I done? I have factorized this part. So this part you have to factorize, but to factorize you are not applying the normal factorization to go to those normal. Just take the first term that is being squared, which is x, the last term which is being squared, which is minus 4, the number there and its sign, which is minus 2, then you square. Okay, then here you just simplify this. This is minus 2 squared is 4, so it's going to give us minus 4. So this will be minus 4 like this. So by this I have completed the square, which is going to give us x minus 2 squared minus 4. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, guys, is this. We are working on a condition where the coefficient of x squared is what? Is 1. Okay, so this is what you're going to have, working with coefficient, in this case coefficient of x squared being equal to 1. All right, let us use this example, x squared plus 4x. From these examples that I'm explaining, I want you to understand from these explanations, guys. Okay, this is it, guys. As you can see here, the coefficient of x squared is 1. Okay, so you see, I said you have to find half the coefficient of x. This is your x here. So the coefficient of x is this 4, and it's a plus, so it's going to be half of 4. This is half the coefficient of x, and you square that half like this. You're going to square it. That's half of 4, which is 2. So this is 2 squared. So like I said, don't write, yes, we know that 2 squared is 4, just like this, so that you actually know the sign. This is the purpose of not, right, so that you know the sign that was there, so that you don't even confuse yourself. Okay, so this is your square, this one, the one that you said, I said you have to add, then you subtract it. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. X squared plus 4x. Okay, this 10 here, you write it later on. This one, you add the square after 4x, after this x, because you want to this is where you want to complete the square here. So you add the square at this, after this expression. So this is your square, which is 2 squared. So you're going to add 2 squared like this, which is what? Which is 4. Then you subtract that square, which is a 2 squared, like that. But already there was what? There was a plus 10 which was there, so you just write your plus 10 as it was. All right, so if you have to check this minus this, that's a 0, which means our question is normalized back to the normal question. But this is where you're going to complete the square. Take note where you complete the square, from this x squared up to 2 squared here, where you added, not this part, just like what we did here, guys. This was your minus 4x, and when you added the term on minus 4, this is where you completed the square. The other part you just simplify as usual. All right, so this is what you're going to do. This, you have got your x. Like I said, to factorize this, you're going to focus with the first term and the last term. That's your x here and your plus 2. So this is x plus 2 squared, like this. By doing this, you have already factorized. Then you simplify this other part of the equation, which is minus 2 squared plus 4, which is simply minus 4 plus what? This is minus 4 plus 10, which is going to give us plus 6. So this will be x plus 2 squared minus 4 plus 10, which is plus 6, like this. So like this, I have completed the square, just like that, guys. All right, maybe it's still having some confusions, but guys, all you need is to revise as much questions as possible. Anyways, let me just have another last one. This is going to be my last example. X squared plus 3x plus 10, complete the square. All right, so this is it, guys. Like I said, half the coefficient of x, and the coefficient of x is this one, 3x, and it's a plus, so it's half of 3, then you square it. All right, so half of 3, that's be 3 over 2, then that's a squared. So don't simplify. Yes, you can write this as 9 over 4, but just leave it like that. So remember, you have to add, then subtract the square. So it's x squared plus, where are we adding to this 3x? So it's going to be 3x plus the square, which is this one, 3 over 2 squared, like this. Then you subtract the square, which is this one, 3 over 2 squared plus 10. So from this point here up to this, that is where you complete the square, and you just take the first term and the last term. That's x plus 3 over 2. Everything you square it, just like I was saying. Then you simplify the last part. This is a minus. Take note, guys, don't mind this. Okay, so it's minus 3 over 2 squared plus 10, like this, which is simply minus 9 over 4 plus what? Plus 10, because you square the bracket first, then you add. Then this will give you 31 over 4. So this will be plus 31 over 4. So like this, guys, I've completed the square, just like that. Okay, so guys, I might end up finishing all the questions here. This is what I want you to do. I want you to try these questions. Just work out on this and try. If you are going to win, just complete the square of the following polynomials that you are given. So just try, guys, and see from this. And this is actually like this. This is x squared minus 2 square root of 3, like this. This is x aside plus 1 on this one, so that is 1. Okay, so you can just try. As you can see, guys, all these I've explained what's happening there. All right, now what if the coefficient of x squared is not 1? We have got a condition where the coefficient of x squared is not 1. Then what is going to happen now? That's the question. What is going to happen? All right, this is the case. Let's take this as an example. I'm going to introduce this part. Let's just say we've got minus x squared, like this, plus 5x plus 7, like this. All right, this is the question that you're given. As you can see, minus, guys, is not a 1. This is a minus. This is not 1. So it means the coefficient of x squared is not 1 there. So what am I going to do? I want you to understand this concept. You do not divide here to say minus minus. This is not an equation. If it was an equation like this, I want to separate an expression from an equation. An equation, you've got minus x squared plus 5x plus 7 is equal to 0, like this. I can simply divide by minus 1 throughout, by minus 1 by minus 1 throughout, and this will be x squared minus 5x minus 7 is equal to 0. All right, but this is an expression. If I divide, it's now wrong, because an equation is possible. We've got two sides, the left side and the right. This we do not have side, it's just an expression, so it's impossible for us to do that. So what you do is that you factor out the term, like this term that you were supposed to use when you were to divide if it was an equation. That's the term that you factor out, so which means you factor out minus 1. So factoring out minus 1, that's simply like a minus, just minus, then open bracket. So you factor out the part that is affecting x. You don't divide, you factor it out. All right, so it's minus x squared divided by minus x. So as you can see, minus and minus will cancel. That's x squared plus 5x divided by minus, it's minus 5x, plus and minus, it's minus 7. So as you can see, this is the part that we obtained, but it's not the same, because our minus is still there, because if I expand by minus, I still obtain this expression. But here, where am I going to have this expression at this stage? I'm not going to have this expression. So this is not an equation. You don't divide. All right, so like I said, write minus 1 like this is simply like writing, it's just equal to, just like writing as minus open bracket minus 1. Guys, from your O-level mathematics, I think you understand much better from there. So this is the equation, the expression that you have. So we are now back to the normal expression, because now the coefficient of x squared is now a positive 1. So you're going to complete the square of the inside bracket, the minus, you just write as it going down. Okay, so it's going to be minus. Remember what you do, you have to find half the coefficient of what? Of x. So this is it, guys, half the coefficient of x, which is what? which is minus 5, then you square that half. So that's going to be minus 5 over 2 squared. All right, so just like what we're doing, guys, you add your square as usual. X squared minus 5x, this is where you add to minus 5x. So you're going to add minus 5 over 2 squared. You subtract that square, which is minus 5 over 2 squared. Okay, already there was a minus 7, so it's supposed to be there. All right, just like this. Then this is what I'm going to do. The minus, deal with it, minus, open the bracket. So remember, you are going to complete the square, and we said you complete the square from this term up to this term, these two. So it's x here, and this one is what? It's minus 5 over 2. Then you square the bracket. These two terms, remember guys, your completing square does not change, and you simplify from this point now. All right, so from this point it's minus, just use this on your calculator properly, simplify this properly, guys. Okay, and this is going to give us minus 53 over 4 in this case. So use your calculator properly, this will give you minus 53 over 4. But take note, guys, this is the bracket which is affected by this negative, which is outside. So you expand by the bracket, which is going to be minus into x minus 5 over 2 squared. Take note, this minus has got no power to enter the bracket. There's a square, so just write it minus times the bracket. But this minus, when it multiplies, here is minus and minus, which is now a plus, which is 53 over 4. So that's the case, guys. So you can even start by writing this, since this is a positive, you can even start by writing the positive 53 over 4. Then you end with the negative, which is minus the bracket of x minus 5 over 2 squared, like that. So you have completed the square. That's it. So completing the square, guys, is you are not solving, so you're not dividing. You factor the part that is affecting x. So that is where you end up now having those functions and so forth, where you're asked to express your answer in the form of x plus b squared plus c, like this. This is simply, this question is simply say complete the square. For you to write in this format, that is by completing the square, whereby maybe you're having 2 into x plus 3 squared minus 4, or whatever that you're going to have. It's through completing the square. So that type of a question is simply asking you to apply or to use completing the square. All right, so those are the typical questions, guys. Let's just see this one, where we have got 3x to the exponent 3x squared minus 7x plus 10. Complete the square. So still we are completing the square. That's complete, guys. Complete the square. All right, so this is what I'm going to do in this case. The coefficient of x squared is not 1. Okay, so what am I going to do? Factor out that coefficient that is not 1. So you factor out 3. So to factor out 3 means you are dividing by 3. That is 3x squared divide by 3. So you're going to be left with x squared minus 7x divide by 3, which is minus 7 over 3x. 10 divide by 3, which is 10 over 3. The only difference is that you are not dividing, cancelling by 3. You are just leaving the 3 there, but you are actually dividing. Just that is how you factorize. So at this stage, the coefficient of x squared is now 1. So I have to apply those normal procedures. Half the coefficient of x, which is minus 7 over 3. Then I have to square this. So it's going to be minus 7 over 2 times 3, which is 6 squared. So this is the square that I'm going to add, then also subtract to this part here. So it's 3 into x squared minus 7 over 3x, like this. We add this square, so it's going to be plus minus 7 over 6, like this square. Then we subtract the same square that we have added, like this, plus 10 over 3, the one that we have here. So at this stage, remember, we complete from this term to this term, and now, guys, we are used to this. So it's x here, and this is minus 7 over 6. Everything you square it. All right, then simplify the remaining part here from your calculator, guys. I know you can do this much better. This is 71 over 36. That's what you're going to have. So that's it. But there's a bracket there, and there's a 3 which is outside of the bracket here, so just expand by that 3. All right, so it's gonna be 3 times, but this bracket is, there's a square, so this 3 cannot enter the bracket. It's just 3 into x minus 7 over 6 squared, just like that. All right, and the 3 here multiplies this fraction, so it's like this 3 times 71 over 36. This multiplies here, and from your calculator this is going to give you a plus 71 over 12. So that's it, guys. You've completed the square. So these are the typical questions, guys. I don't know if you are following or understanding the concept, but these are the typical questions actually that you're going to have, and I'm just going to have this as the last question, but I want you to try this and see. Then we move on to the applications now. So I want you to try these typical questions. Try to solve these questions by completing the square of the following quadratic polynomial. So these are the typical questions that I have for you guys. Just try and work on them and see if you are going to win. All right, so before we move on to the applications of this part, I just want us to see maybe this one, but it's actually clear. Maybe someone can just ask what is happening on this type of equation if it is like that. So it's simply like the previous type of equation. All here you need to do is to first expand the bracket so that you can actually see properly the quadratic expression. So that's 4x and x, which is 4x squared, 4x and 2, which is 8x. So I've expanded the bracket. Now I can clearly see the quadratic expression that I'm working with, and on this quadratic expression the coefficient of x squared is not 1, so I have to factor the term that is affecting x squared, which is 4. That's 4x squared divided by 4, which is x squared. 8x divided by 4, that's 8 divided by 4, which is 2x, like this. So this is the part that I'm going to complete the square, where I have to find half the coefficient of x, which is 2. Then I have to square it. So half of 2, that is 1 squared, and 1 squared is just like 1. So it's going to be 4 into x squared plus 2x. Remember, we add and subtract the square, so we're going to add 1 squared, then we subtract 1 squared. All right, at this stage everything is now clear. Factorize from this part to this point here, which is x and 1. So it's x plus 1, everything squared, and this is going to give you minus 1. And you can expand by 4, guys. The 4 multiplies the bracket, that's 4 into x plus 1 squared. Just multiply the bracket direct, and 4 times minus 1, which is minus 4. So at this stage I have completed the square. So these are the typical questions, guys, that you have, and all you need is to work on more questions and so forth. So on the applications now, where are we going to apply this concept? Where are we going to apply this concept of completing the square? Okay, this is where you're going to have it, working with your quadratic, cubic functions, but in this case actually working with the quadratic, because it's not like we are going to be focusing with the cubic. You're going to focus with the quadratic function, where we can be able to state or to determine the maximum and minimum turning point of a particular function that we have. Maybe I've got a function like this. This is your x and this is your y. X is this is your y, which is equivalent to f of x. For this function at this turning point here, this is your maximum, or whether it's like this, we've got your minimum turning point. Okay, if you are to write your equation or this f of x like this, if this f of x can be written in the form of a into x plus b squared like this plus c, if you can write it like this, it means minus b and c is the coordinate of the turning point. Okay, this format can be written, it can be a plus, it can be, guys, don't panic when you're given these typical expressions. It can be like this, x minus b squared plus c. They can even give you like this. So it simply means here you introduce a negative, which is b, like that. So this point is now your turning point. All right, so the part with x here, you simply, where is this b coming from? You simply equate this x minus b to 0, that x is equal to b. So the value of x here and here is the c, which is the value of y as it is. There's nothing that you change here, as it is. That's your turning point. Okay, I'm bringing confusion after confusion. This is what I'm trying to say. If you are talking of the maximum and minimum turning, as long as a turning point, which is also referred to as a stationary point. A stationary point is a turning point which can be maximum turning point, or it can be minimum turning point. So I'm saying that if your equation or the function that you have is written maybe like this: x is equal to 2 into x plus 1 squared minus 4, like this, you can state the turning point without expanding the equation. By just looking at this format, you can state the turning point, where the value of x here, if you don't understand, you just equate this to 1. X plus 1 you equate to 0, like that. So x is equal to minus 1, which means the value of x is minus 1, and the value of y is this y as it is. As you can see, it's not y minus 4, it's just minus 4. This one does not change. So this is your turning point. We don't know it's a maximum or it's a minimum turning point. So you simply introduce here the value of x, you introduce it a minus, the value of y, it remains as it is. That's your turning point. All right. So now, if they give you an equation like this, definitely you will see the answer, guys. Like, you are given to state the coordinate of the turning point, whereby you are given something like y is equal to x minus 2 squared plus 5, and the question is asking you to determine the coordinate of the turn. You can simply say, okay, this is a minus 2. I introduce a minus, so minus and minus is now a 2. Then this y here just remains as it is. You can easily see that this is my turning point. So what do they do now? They will give you this typical question in this way. All right, let me show you. This is how they can ask this question. So I'm just taking this from the question papers. That is how they ask. The equation of a curve is given as, that is the equation of a curve. Express that equation 8x minus x squared in the form of, we are given the format stating the numerical value of a and b, and so otherwise find the coordinates of the stationary point or the curve. You see now how they ask this question. All right, this is what I'm going to have. This is my expression that I'm working with, which is 8x minus x squared. So I'm supposed to complete the square. To write in this format, I told you guys, is only achieved by completing the square. They are simply asking you to complete the square in another way. They're just writing there is complete the square. So definitely I have to complete the square here. And what am I supposed to do? Just rearrange this. So it's minus x squared plus 8x, starting with squared, x squared. But this x squared is a negative. Remember, with condition where the coefficient of x squared is not 1. What did I say? You factor out the factor that is affecting x, which is -1 in this case, which is negative x squared. If I factor out a negative here, I'm going to be left with minus 8x. Then I have to find half the coefficient of x, which is minus 8, then square it. So half of minus 8, that is minus 4, then you square it. So this is what I'm going to have: minus into x squared minus 8x. After this x, that is where I add the square, which is minus 4 squared. Then I subtract the square. Remember, guys, the concept that we did previously. So this is minus, and we said we are going to factorize from this up to last term x and minus 4. So it's x minus 4 squared. Take note, the sign is very, very important, which is minus 4 squared. So minus 4 squared is 16, so it's going to be minus 16. So this will be minus 16, like this. All right, multiply by negative, that's negative times this bracket, which is negative, into x minus 4 squared. Negative times negative here, which is plus 16. So since this is a positive, I can start writing with the positive, just like a matter of minus a plus b, guys, you can simply write b minus this one is the same thing. So I can just write this 16 minus this bracket of x minus 4, which is being squared like this. So this is the format that we are being asked to write there, which is a into whatever that you have. So it's not, it doesn't mean that there's supposed to be a minus this. No, guys, these are just the coefficients that you're just having. So this b can actually be a minus, like this one is a minus, but the format that you're supposed to have is just this way, the format. Okay, now hence or otherwise, find the coordinates of the stationary point. The stationary point simply means the turning point, guys. That's your stationary point. So therefore our stationary point in this case, which is our turning point on item 2, is going to be, remember I said if you can write your equation or expression in this form, it means here you introduce in the value of x, you introduce a negative, so it's minus minus, which is a 4. This is a minus and a minus, so that is going to be a 4. The value of y here is positive 16, so that will be your stationary point or your turning point. All right, so I think that's it, guys. That's what you're supposed to know. And they can ask these questions in different ways. As you can see, this one, express this in the format where then hence state the minimum value of y. When you're asked to state the minimum value of y, you are saying after this, I want you to complete this one, I want you to try this one. You're going to complete your square, then this is what you're going to obtain. You're going to obtain something like this, x minus 5 over 2 squared like this, minus 9 over 4. After you've completed the square. So the minimum value of y is the value of this one, because remember your turning point is going to be minus 5, which is a negative, and a negative, which is going to be 5 over 2 and minus 9 over 4. This is the value of x, this is the value of y, and this is your turning point. So once they say it's a minimum, which means that it means this is a minimum turning point. So the value of y at the minimum is this one, which is minus 9 over 4. So therefore your y is going to be minus 9 over 4. You are now taking the value of y from the point. Answer the question, guys. Learn to answer the question. All right, so here you're going to take the value of y. This is a turning point, then this is the minimum value of y. So this part, guys, we just follow the procedure. I think now you are used to completing the square and so forth. So I want you to try these questions and see if we are going to obtain the same thing there. So that's what you have, guys. And also they can give you another typical question like this one, where they will ask you to show that x squared plus 1 is positive for all real values of what, of x. How do you show that this is positive for all real values of x? Okay, so this is what you're going to do. You simply complete the square as usual and see if it is going to be a positive. So after completing, I'll explain what's going to happen here. So this is what you're going to do. You want to show that this is positive for all the real values of what, for x that you have. Okay, so let's complete the square and see what's going to happen here. Half of what? Half the coefficient of x, which is 1. Already the coefficient of x squared here is 1. So you need to find half the coefficient of x, which is half of 1. Then you square it, of which half of 1 is what? That's a half squared. Okay, so I'm going to add the square, x squared plus x. After x, I add the square, which is 1 over 2 squared. Then subtract that square, which is 1 over 2 squared plus 1, just like that. All right. So remember, you have to factorize here. That's where you factorize. That's x and 1 over 2. So it's x plus 1 over 2 squared. Then here, if you simplify properly, minus 1, minus like this, 1 over 2 should be in a bracket. The minus is not inside, it's outside of the bracket. So it's squared plus 1 like this, which is going to give us 3 over 4 in this case, which is a plus 3 over 4. Okay. So how am I to show that this is positive? Okay, guys, this is it. For any value of x that I'm going to substitute here, if I substitute any value of x here, whether it's a positive or it's a negative, the moment that there's a square, it means this is going to give me a positive. A square of any number, guys, is like this. Minus 3 squared is 9. 3 squared is 9. So the square of any number, that's a positive. So a positive number added to a positive number, there's no way it is going to be a negative, because here we are going to obtain a positive and it's added to a positive. therefore this is going to be a positive for all real. So therefore this is positive because it's a positive expression. Maybe if it was like this, you have simplified or complete the square, then you obtain something like this: x plus a half squared minus 3/4, like this. There are possibilities that I can even square a certain value, but when I subtract I can get a negative. It's possible. So here I can't give a guarantee to say this is going to give us a negative. So this one is actually not the one that we're talking about, but this one is the right one. According to what we had, it's a positive. So it means, therefore it's positive, because the question is to prove that this is going to be positive for all. So any value of x here, it is going to be a positive. So I want you to do the same thing here and see if you are going to obtain a positive expression by completing the square. Then you can conclude that this definitely is going to give us positive values for all the values of x. So that's what you had, guys, for Meson African motives, working on A-level mathematics, pure mathematics for Zimsec. So if there are any questions, guys, feel free to let me know about the questions that we have, question papers, past exam papers, and just communicate with us on the email on the description of the channel, and also the contact, they are there on the description of the channel, so that I'll be able to know even the question papers that you have that you want us to work on. You send them so that we can work on those question papers and revisions as we prepare ourselves for the exams that are ahead of time. So that's it, guys, for Meson African motives. Till we meet again.